Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our home. I'm Tarah.
I'm Satya.
And we're from Zest Plant-Based Kitchen, which is a semi-new, I guess you could say, vegan restaurant downtown Traverse City on East Front Street. So we are a vegan cafe open from 8 to 3, Tuesday through Saturday. And we opened last July, right during the Cherry Festival. So we just opened the doors and the horses came and it was a horse race and here we are. So
we serve primarily, we serve vegan food, and we try to primarily incorporate whole food ingredients. We try to cook with herbs and spices to flavor the food and kind of maintain the food's natural flavors that they come with, because there's so many amazing different ingredients out there that we think are very unique and can kind of you can mix and match, and that does a lot for different palates. And then one of the things we also try to do is incorporate some of my background, which is Indian, and rotate a different Indian dish every week. So we've been doing that since we've been opened, and that's one of the things that we're going to try to show you how to cook tonight.
Yeah, so if you haven't been to Zest, like Satya said, we do have a rotating Indian dish that we change every week. We also have a soup that we change every week. We have smoothies, gourmet toast. We have a really good breakfast or a burrito called the Bollywood burrito. That's our most popular item. We have salads. We have really great banana bread, and everything is vegan and gluten-free, and it will always be that way. And yeah, we have a couple other menu items, so check us out if you haven't. And yeah, so our dishes tonight will be cubby fry, which is a spicy fried cabbage and potatoes, and then a sweet potato and tamarind curry. So Satya is going to start us off.
Yeah, just a little bit of background behind the dish. Cubby fry, the fried, sauteed, braised cabbage and potatoes is kind of used as a garnish for a lot of Indian dishes. So it's a side dish, so we try to incorporate that with our curry tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and kind of show you, walk you through what we're going to do here.
All right, so let's focus in a little bit more on the area that we are going to be utilizing a little more. All right.
So what we did for the sake of time is we just prepped everything, prepped the stuff that we're going to be sauteing. So I chopped up some onions. This is one medium-sized onion. I diced it finely, and then I also diced up probably, what'd you say, about one thing of garlic?
So how many cloves? Like
probably about 5 cloves of garlic. We're really like garlic intensive, I guess you would say, in our food. And then a half of a serrano chili. The nice thing about Indian food is it's very kind of moldable. So if you're somebody that doesn't like spice too much, you can back off on that. Or if you're somebody that really likes spice, you can move that to make it more spicy. So backing off, maybe trying a jalapeno instead of a serrano, or even eliminating the chili altogether. It's not going to change the flavor of the food too much. So the first thing I'm doing with this is starting with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we're going to heat that up. Next, for this dish, we start with a tablespoon of mustard seeds.
Hey, did you leave the seeds in the peppers?
Yes, we did.
They're whole mustard.
In the serrano.
Oh, yes. Oh. Yeah, so we like spice, and the seeds actually add a little bit of heat to the dish. So I did leave the seeds in there.
And as Satya was saying, we do like garlic. As you can see, this is probably about 3 tablespoons of finely chopped garlic, not one that we put in the recipe, but if you're someone, again, who isn't too fond of garlic, that might be a good place to start. And you can always leave it out as well. It won't change the recipe too much. It's fine without it.
So then we got a tablespoon of garlic here that we're going to add into the olive oil. What?
Black mustard seeds.
Oh, black mustard seeds, sorry.
Talking too much about garlic.
Yeah. The black mustard seeds, and then kind of mix that around a little bit in the dish, in the olive oil. And So then the biggest thing about the black mustard seeds is you heat it up in the olive oil. I put it on about medium heat, and then I continue to heat that until the black mustard seeds start to pop. When it starts to pop, that's your signal to add your onions, your garlic, and your serrano chili to the dish. Right now, I'm just kind of mixing the olive oil with the black mustard seeds to get them coated. That usually takes about a minute or so. It doesn't take very long for that to start popping. Oh, just for reference, so we used an onion about this size in our dish.
At some point, can you talk about curry, like curry spice? I mean, when you go to the grocery store, you buy this thing called curry, but I know that, that there's probably 10,000, 100,000 curries, right? Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I find it helpful. Let me grab our curry powder out of our cupboard here. I find it helpful almost to think, so this is just curry powder from Field Day. I find it helpful to think of curry not as like a dish, but as almost as like a mixture. So curry itself is, there can be many different types of curries. The curry that we think of has a number of different ingredients in there. A common, like for instance, in this one, it has coriander, turmeric, which gives it this nice color, cumin, fenugreek, sea salt, cayenne pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, nutmeg. It has all those ingredients in it, and it produces the flavor that we think of as curry. But that doesn't, curry isn't necessarily like an actual spice. It is a mixture of different spices that produce a certain flavor. Similar to something like masala. Masala is also a type of Indian mixture of different spices. So I think for people, it's helpful to think of curry not as a spice, but as a mixture of different spices that produce a flavor.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We also purchased this spice at Oriana, and a lot of our other spices that we have are by this brand, Simply Organic, which we also purchased at Oriana as well. And then these black mustard seeds you can purchase at Oriana. I think these are actually from Satya's family in South Africa.
Well, one other thing I wanted to say about the curry powder, you know, curry powder is very different depending on the source. So this curry powder is really good. I really like this. I actually went out to, if you've never been out to NJ's in, it's either Leland or Lake Leelanau. It's a grocery store, and in the back of the grocery store, her name is Rosie. They own it, and they have an Indian basically restaurant that they cater out of. Well, she blends up her own spices from whole spices and makes her own curry powder. And so I think, you know, like I would experiment and try like different curry powders and see what your palate likes, because they can vary widely depending on what your source is. She gets most of her whole spices straight from India, and then she blends up her own mixes. And she sells it at NJ's Grocery as well. So we're almost starting to pop here. You want to have it where it's consistently popping. You'll start to hear it start to pop. You want it where it's popping without any breaks in between.
Does it matter if you use black versus yellow mustard seeds?
I would stick to black. I like the flavor of black mustard seeds for this dish. So I would try to stick to black mustard seeds. I have used when I haven't been able to get black mustard seeds, I have used yellow mustard seeds before.
I think personally too, the black mustard seeds give it a really good contrast to the already yellow or gold spices. So you can really see the mustard seeds in this dish at the end. You'll probably be able to tell more, but it really looks kind of nice. It gives it a different look too.
Okay, so you can hear the mustard seeds really start to popping now. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but they're really popping.
Yeah.
So then I add a tablespoon of the cumin seeds. I kind of sprinkle those around in there. For this dish, I really like to use whole cumin seeds. And it just gives it this wonderful aroma. Those two meld together really well. And after I do that, then I add in the mixture that I prepped earlier, the onions, the garlic, and the serrano chili. By the way, we use gloves at Zest. I'm barehanded, but I'm in my own kitchen now, so I thought that would be acceptable. So after I do that, we start to kind of stir everything in, mix everything together. I really like to get the mustard seeds and the cumin seeds coated in the onions. And then the next thing you're looking for is the onions to slowly start to become translucent and brown.
I know that in Indian cooking, people use ghee, but since you're vegan, you're not using ghee. Is there anything else that you can use for vegan?
Yeah, I think it varies. Like, so the thing about Indian cooking is it's so vast and so different depending on the region of India that you're in, or even the neighborhood of India that you're in. So, for instance, my grandmother, who I used to watch, and that's how I learned, she would just use vegetable oil. I like olive oil, so I use olive oil. A lot of Indians I would say don't use olive oil. That's just something that I've incorporated into my cooking along the way. Yeah, a lot of Indians will use ghee. I think it's acceptable, to use coconut oil. I think whatever you have a good taste for it. One of the things I try to stress is make it your own. Try to. We're amateurs in the kitchen, so we're all about just experimenting and just trying to make dishes our own and play with it a lot. And I think that's kind of the fun in cooking, is you don't have to necessarily go strictly by what you learned or what a recipe is. You can just play with it a little bit, especially with things like that are not going to change the flavor of the food that much. This is kind of what this looks like right now. And then we're going to continue to saute that until it gets translucent and brown. Mm-hmm.
So like Satya said, we are amateurs. We're not trained chefs. We're just two individuals that have a passion for cooking and what we would consider to be healthy cooking, which is really what drove us to start Zest. We thought that Traverse City as a whole is really lacking with vegan or plant-based options anywhere. And so we wanted to give it a shot and, help fill that void with that very specific type of food. And it's really been awesome to have support from the community. And I know a couple of you have come into the restaurant and said you were joining us tonight, which means the world. And we're so thankful that you're here. But going back to being amateurs, that's what's kind of fun about being in the kitchen and cooking is, you get to try different things. You get to be creative. You get to experiment. Some of these ingredients you may never have cooked with before. And maybe you'll find that you completely dislike it, or maybe you love it. And, that's what it's really all about, is finding food that maybe will energize you, make you feel good, and fit your lifestyle too.
One of the things that I've felt since eating more, and I'm not completely vegan. I try to eat mostly this way, mostly because I'm married to a vegan, and we eat together every night. We don't cook separate meals. I just feel like I can eat this food and I don't feel like I need to sit down and take a nap. I feel like I feel energized, like I can eat and I can go for a run if I want to. The food really makes me feel good. So that's one of the things that I latched onto when I started eating more like my wife instead of like I used to. So we're getting close here, just a little bit longer, and I think the onions will be where we want them to be. And then our next step is to add a finely chopped potato. We want to add the potato first because that takes a little bit longer to cook, because you want the potato to be soft at the end. It takes a little bit longer than the cabbage to be cooked to where you want it to be. So, what I'm doing right now is just kind of mixing it around as it sautés.
Do you have to monitor it like that, or can you walk away from it?
You can walk away from it. Yeah. I think what I found in cooking, listening to what the food sounds like, it sounds a certain way when it's at a certain temp or it's at a certain point in the process. But yeah, within like 5 to 10 minutes with sauteing the onions is usually good. So at the temperature that we're cooking at. So you can walk away and do a couple other things while it's doing that.
So we have our heat right now on medium high. So again, that would probably depend on whether you have it on low, high, but that's kind of where we have it at right now, and we're probably going to keep it at that for the rest of the recipe.
What the potato looks like. So I'm adding the potato in, and we just use one russet potato.
So it's this size,
peeled and diced finely.
How big are the dices?
Probably about a 1/4 inch.
Okay.
Like 1/4 inch square.
Okay.
And pretty much for everything, we use this knife. It's an 8-inch chef's knife, and this works really well. We pretty much have used this for everything so far. And we have a wooden cutting board, but you can use anything that you have in your kitchen. We just prefer wood because when you make those, those little divots into the cutting board, you're kind of chopping up a little piece of it. So we just prefer to digest wood over plastic, I suppose, if it gets in there. So that's what we have. But again, you can use anything that you have in your kitchen that works for you.
So again, I'm just mixing the onions, the potatoes, and everything together now, and allowing that to be well mixed. And I'll kind of show you what it looks like after I'm done. Those gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one. Both.
No, one's fine. So this is what it looks like now. All right, and then you don't really need to saute that for very long. You don't need to cook that for very long. So you go ahead and add the cabbage.
So you're going to be doing some curbside delivery here in a little bit then?
So the cabbage is a 1/2 head of cabbage that we chopped. So I just chopped it in half and then sliced it in kind of these half moon shapes and then chopped it up finely until it looked like this.
So I know the recipe, we called for the 1/2 of the cabbage cut into thin strips, but this will just help us cook it down a little faster by cutting it into smaller pieces. And like the recipe says, you can use a green or a purple cabbage. Either one will be fine. It won't change the taste too much. It's just really more for color variation.
Well, at first it's gonna look like your pot is too full, but this all will kind of cook down, especially if you have a more shallow pot. This will cook down as it loses moisture from the cooking process. So I just go ahead and mix all this in, mix it in evenly.
Does it matter when you add your seasoning, your curry?
So that's the thing that I do next. And yeah, some people will add the seasoning when they're adding the onions. I find for this dish, it helps to add it after you've added the potatoes and the cabbage.
So you're not salting anything at this point either?
No, I don't salt anything until I add the spices. And then after I add the spices is when I add my salt. And then at the end, I taste it and I decide whether I need to add any more salt. The salt for this dish is it's purely based on taste. I don't really have a guideline for that in this dish. I just kind of salt it to taste. So then everything's nicely coated. We'll go ahead and add our spices. So we start with, I do a teaspoon of turmeric. Or more of this. Do a teaspoon of coriander. Oh, and mix that around. I think, Tara, we're gonna kind of mention a little bit about the some of the health benefits. I think, like in general, Indian food, because of the spices used, just offer like a wealth of health benefits. A lot of the bases in Indian curries and different dishes use garlic and ginger, and a lot of the food incorporates turmeric in it. And those just have these wonderful natural antioxidant and other health benefit properties to them, anti-inflammation, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the mustard seeds that Satya added to this dish, they're very high in selenium, which help aid in bone strength. They have other vitamins and nutrients, like Satya said, just good for overall health. The cumin that you added cumin in this one, cumin seeds in this one. So that actually helps aid in digestion. It has a lot of antioxidants to help fight off those free radicals in your body. And then, turmeric, like Satya mentioned, has just some really great healing properties. It helps with inflammation by decreasing inflammation. It helps with pain management. There's also studies that show that it helps with your memory. So just really great overall, like healing properties in these spices with Indian food.
Now I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle this in. Like I said, for For
Do you
the
have a
salt,
preference for salt? I'm sorry, do you have a preference for what kind of salt you like to use?
We use fine and sea salt. Like the fine grind sea salt. Okay, so we're just gonna move the pans around really quick, just so I can utilize the one that is closest to you. So we're going to start the sweet potato and tamarind curry. And we just really like this dish. It's pretty simple to make, but has great flavor, and the ingredients are pretty cheap, and it's just like a really easy dish for someone who maybe has never cooked Indian food before but wants to dabble in it. So you might be wondering what tamarind is, and it actually, I'll show you the jar of tamarind, which we're going to use. We're not going to use the actual fruit, but we're going to use this concentrate. So it looks like, so it's actually the paste inside of this pea pod looking object. So it comes from a tree bearing fruit that grows in warmer climates. It's also known as the date of India because inside that very like leguminous looking pod is this sour paste. So it's really unique. And it kind of helps give this like sour, tangy flavor. And then it just looks like this black liquid, almost as if you blended up some dates and added a little bit of water. So that's what we'll use today.
So this is a concentrate too. So we got this concentrate actually from Oriana. And if you don't have access to like the actual fresh fruit, this is a good substitute that we found to use.
So it's definitely more accessible here using the concentrate just because we live in northern Michigan. So for this dish, I'm going to use, this is actually a Dutch oven. We got this on Amazon. It was just one of their like basics, part of their basic collection, and it works really well. You can use this to saute, to bake even. It works really well. So to start the dish, we will add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the pot. And I'm jumping to the second bullet point there, but it's okay. So I'm just going to use the same olive oil. This is from Costco. It's organic. We pretty much use this for everything. So 2 tablespoons. And it's really just, you just want enough oil to coat the pan. So might be a little more, might be a little less, depending on what pan you're using. Thank you. So then I'm going to turn this on low to medium heat to start. And so then I will grab the onion, garlic cloves, and serrano chili. Okay, and then also just for the sake of time, we did prep these items. So we have the diced garlic, finely chopped there, the serrano chili, and then the onion. So 1 large like yellow onion, kind of like we mentioned before, half of the serrano chili, and we did leave the seeds for this one as well. And then probably about 6 garlic cloves that we chopped as well. So this is heating up a little bit. So we'll just add that to the pan. We're just going to kind of stir it around just to make sure that the oil is going to coat those ingredients. Going to turn it up just a little bit, but still not too high. Don't want it to burn. Okay, so as that sautés, I'm going to get my spices ready. All right, and then for this dish, we will use curry powder, chili powder, coriander, cumin, and then a little salt as well. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit longer until the onions are translucent too. Might need to turn it up a little bit. The heat up, that is. And just continue to stir it around so it cooks evenly. Yeah, we tend to use serrano chilies instead of jalapenos. They just have a really great flavor and just have like the right amount of heat, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we like food that's a little bit on the spicier end. Tara has always been like that. I grew up eating like that. My grandmother, I used to always ask her as I was toweling the sweat off my face why our food was so hot, and she would just say that our family can't really taste food unless it's got that heat to it. So that's why I've always been that way. We've always eaten food that was a little bit on the hotter side. I guess those are those Indian roots kicking in.
All right, so it's been about 2 minutes, so we're gonna add the spices now, and then it looks pretty much just looks like this. So not golden brown quite yet, but almost there. Okay, so then we will add 1 tablespoon of cumin, which is again this simply organic brand, just ground cumin. Right. And then we will add the coriander. Another tablespoon. Oh, you get a little more in there, it's okay. Alrighty. And then let me grab the curry powder. And I think too, you know, as you're cooking, tasting is really important. So it tastes how you want it to taste, you know. So after maybe we mix these spices in, and then cook it for a little bit, even just giving it a quick taste test to make sure that it is tasting the way you want it to before the dish is done is always like a good idea. Just gonna stir these up a little bit. Make sure all the ingredients are nicely and evenly coated. Smells so good. And I'm just using a wooden spoon for this. You can use anything that you really have in your kitchen just to mix all the ingredients around. Satya is going to give the puppy fry a quick stir just to make sure it's not burning at the bottom and everything is cooking nicely. And I definitely added way more curry powder than the typical teaspoon. So again, 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon is probably the ratio that you're gonna wanna keep in mind. 1 teaspoon is always a good place to start. And then if it doesn't taste strong enough, add a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to add the last spice, which is 1 teaspoon of chili powder. Oh, use this one. So for this one, this is chili powder as well. We're actually going to use this one for the dish. And as you can see, kind of, I mean, we definitely cook with chili powder a lot. This one has more of like a reddish hue. And this one is ground from a blend of spices in South Africa. And then this is the Simply Organic brand. And this is another chili powder. And that has more of like an orange hue to it. So then this, what would you say? This one probably has like a different chili or less chilies in it?
Probably different chili, maybe a little bit more filler in it. This is probably more fresh ground chili, and this is a lot more, this is a lot spicier.
Yeah, so this chili powder again is a blend, and this one has organic chili powder, cumin, oregano, coriander, garlic, rice concentrate, allspice, and cloves. So we're going to use this chili powder, and it is pretty strong heat wise, and we're just going to use a teaspoon. All right, sorry if you hear one of our roommates barking in the back, that's Charlie. He is on patrol. So we're just gonna add that in, give it a good stir, make sure again that it's not burning at the bottom. If it starts to burn a little bit, turn your heat down because you want it to continue to cook evenly and slowly. So I'm gonna turn the heat down a little bit. It's about at medium now. So stir, stir, stir. And I'll show you what it looks like. I'm gonna grab this. This is called the Up Glove. I don't even know where we got these, but they work really well. You can use oven mitts too. But this pan tends to get really hot at the handle, so I just don't want to burn myself. But this is what it looks like. So as you can see, it's starting to cook down really well, get golden brown, and the spices are cooking in there. It smells really good. All right, so I'm gonna give it just another quick stir here. And I am just about ready now to add my sweet potato. So for this recipe, you want to use 2 large sweet potatoes. So this is the size that we used. So we used 2 of these, and then again, for the sake of time, we chop these into cubes, which I will grab and show you. So 2 large sweet potatoes fill this dish. So as you can see, they are chopped and cubed already. So if you chop and cube them the same size, it will cook it will cook evenly and at the same time. And that works really well. So we'll just add the sweet potato. Thank you. And we will stir. So coat the sweet potato with the onion, garlic, and serrano mixture, as well as all of those spices, keeping it at about medium heat. So you're just going to continue to stir. If you find that your ingredients are sticking to the bottom of the pan, you can always add a little bit more oil to counteract that, or you can add a little bit more water as well. Whatever would work for you. So just going to continue to stir this. We've actually made this recipe at the restaurant at Zest at least once. So this might be something that if you've been in before, you've seen or maybe have had. So I will show you what that looks like after you mix everything together. Got to get my Up gloves on real quick.
It's a nice color.
Yeah. So it looks like this, all mixed together. And all right. So that will saute for another few minutes. So as that continues to cook, we're going to continue to stir it around just so it cooks evenly. We already washed our tomatoes. So 4 large tomatoes, we already washed them. And for this recipe, we are going to actually blend them, which you could always chop them and add it to this recipe. But blending them is a trick that we just kind of came across when we need to have the tomatoes kind of cook down in a pinch. So I will show you what that looks like. So these are the washed tomatoes in our blender. So they're ready to be blended. So tomatoes are about this size, already washed them. We just use this veggie wash and water. So we will blend the tomatoes. So be right back. You're gonna hear me do that really quick. Satia's gonna do it really quick. So before we add those, we're just gonna, again, continue to stir. They're getting a little bit softer, which is what you want. You want them to cook down. All right. So we just blended those whole tomatoes as is. We didn't cut them in half or cut them in quarters or anything. And we just used our blender. We have a Vitamix blender that works really well. It's a good investment if you have the option to purchase one, but you can use any blender that you have. You might just need to cut them a little bit, but we blended the 4 tomatoes, and as you can see, they are liquefied. So we'll add that over the rest of the ingredients. Make sure you get it all.
Water for that to get the rest of it.
All right, so I'll add this liquid tomato mixture to the dish. So while I'm doing this, Satya is going to grab the 4 cups of water for this recipe as well. And so we just use the Vitamix container to measure out the 4 cups of water so that we can make sure to grab any remnants of the tomatoes that we have. So the water right here, and then depending on how thick you want this curry or how thin, you may want to use a little less water or a little bit more. 4 seems to be a good amount, which is what we'll use today. So we will just stir this so it is all mixed together. All right, so before I turn the temperature up on the stove top here, I will add the tamarind. So again, we're going to use this tamarind concentrate, and this will give it a really nice sour tangy flavor to kind of go with the sweetness of the sweet potato. So I'm just using a 1/4 cup measuring cup here. Pour it in, and it's really thick. And just add it.
What was that called again, Tara?
This is tamarind. So this is the concentrate, not the actual fruit that you would see here, this like leguminous pea pod looking item. So it's what's inside. So it's almost like a date paste that is like green actually inside as it ripens, and then it is has that sour flavor. And you can get that again at Oriana. You can probably get it at other places as well too, but they definitely have it there.
The TC Latino grocery store off of South Airport, they also have a lot of those type of concentrate products. I have a tamarind concentrate there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're welcome. As we stir this up, the color is changing a little bit. It's more of like a rust brown color. I'll show you here in a minute. I did turn up the heat to about like medium high. And I'll show you what that looks like in the pot. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so this is what it looks like before it's going to cook for a while on medium to high heat. And really what will be the deciding factor of when it's done is when the potatoes are soft. And before I put the lid on this Dutch oven, I'm going to add salt. And then this recipe, you know, we said 1 teaspoon, but again, it's really to taste, but I will measure it out just because that's what the recipe is. So I have a 1/2 teaspoon. So I'll fill this up twice, get the 1. You can always add more. You can do no salt if that's what you prefer. And sometimes, you know, if you feel like the recipe calls for more salt, you really just need acid. So sometimes even just a splash of lemon juice really does wonders for a dish. Okay, so I'll mix that all in there. The salt in. All right, and then I'm going to grab the lid for the Dutch oven and let it cook a little bit longer, and then Satya will update you on the cubby fry.
So the cubby fry, I've just been occasionally stirring around, making sure that the bottom isn't getting too hot and burning. I think we're close to having it be done here, so I'm going to go ahead and try it. This is what it looks like when it's near finished, and how I judge that is, can I take my cooking spoon and easily slice through the potato? Not so that it's mashed, but it's easily cut through. Then I know that it's probably ready to be tasted. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my fork and just try it, make sure I get some of the potato as well as the cabbage.
It's a little hot.
It cracks me up how you went off camera to do that. Oh, here he is. He's back.
Yum, that's a good cubby fry. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more salt though.
You guys, as you were doing that, I wanted to tell you that it's kind of subtitled at the bottom. And when you say ground cumin, it was saying ground human. I was like, oh no, no, no ground human.
Definitely not ground humans in this dish. Only spices. That would not be good.
Cumin is one of my
so you could see the difference, the contrast to the black mustard seeds with the other spices, and I think that just makes the dish look really appealing as well.
So that's completely cooked now. We'll go ahead and turn that off, and that can kind of just sit while we're waiting for our curry to finish. So as we're waiting, so that's kind of everything's done. The nice thing about Indian food is once you get everything in the pot and it's ready and everything's melded together, you can kind of just let it cook and do its thing until it's ready to be served. Like Tara was saying, for sweet potato curry, we know that it's done when the sweet potatoes are soft and ready to be eaten. And so I guess at this time we could kind of take anybody's questions. I'm not really sure the format of how that works, but we're more than willing to answer any questions anybody would have while we're waiting for the curry to finish up.
Yeah. So when the curry's done, we'll plate these items up with rice that we also cooked beforehand, just so we could save a little bit more time, and show you what that looks like. In the rice, we just did, let me see here. So we did just 2 cups of rice with 4 cups of water, brought it to a boil, and then turned it down and cooked for 15 minutes on low to medium heat. And this is what it looks like. So it should be fluffy. If you kind of like mix it up with a fork, this should just kind of fluff up really nicely. And we used an organic medium grain, I think white rice, and we bought it from Costco. I'll show you that.
This is this Sona Masuri rice.
That's interesting. I think Oriana only has short grain and long grain rice. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, another rice we like is the basmati rice. Is a very good rice to use with a lot of Indian dishes as well, especially like if you were to make like a biryani.
Yeah, I think they have basmati rice. What kind of bread would you serve with this, or would you serve bread with this?
Yeah, so there's 2 different kinds. So you could either do like a naan or a roti. Roti is more of a South Indian type version of naan. Those are 2 things that are widely served with Indian curries. Actually, in South Africa, where I'm from, in Durban, which is on the east side of the country, they have this thing called bunny chow. And what they do is they hollow out a loaf of bread, and they fill the curry inside the hollowed out loaf of bread, and then they use the stuff that they hollowed out to dunk in the curry. That's an Indian dish called bunny chow, or kind of a street food Indian dish, which a lot of people in my family like that and serve it.
That sounds really good. For the tomatoes in that curry dish, could you use, because sometimes out of season tomatoes are not very tasty. Could you use canned tomatoes instead of fresh tomatoes?
Yeah, absolutely. We've used that before. We stock up on canned tomatoes from Costco, like the canned tomato packs from there, because we cook a lot of curries, and it's really good just doing that. We actually talked about doing that, but for the sake of showing everybody, we wanted to do the fresh tomatoes.
Yeah, typically we use it's just like a can of organic diced tomatoes with salt. I think a little salt added, and that works really well. As Satya was saying. So this is still cooking, getting soft. Just want to check it. Okay, it's bubbling up a little bit, which is good. That's definitely going to take a little bit longer.
So that's almost like a soup, really.
Yeah, it thickens up with time. Let me see.
One thing we'll probably do here in a little bit is take the lid off, and then it'll start. So yeah, the water, once that water starts to boil off and cook off, it starts to thicken up. The other thing is, a funny saying is curry, it tastes good. It tastes even better the next day. It really thickens up after it's been in your fridge overnight. And then when you reheat it and serve it the next day, it's almost better. So that's something that happens with the cooking process.
Someone was also asking, how would you describe the taste of the tamarind?
Kind of like I would say like maybe a, not sour, but like between like it just has like a tang to it. I don't know how else to describe it besides giving it a little bit of a zip. So maybe like, I guess with this dish, sweet and sour, but like not where you're like puckering, where it's like real sour, but just kind of has a little bit of there's some zip there.
Yeah.
Tasting it on its own, it's definitely sour, but when you mix it into a dish, it tones it down quite a bit.
A lot of times for like for meat eaters, Indian meat eaters, it's used in like fish curries.
Mm-hmm.
Stir this a little bit.
Do you like to put like some fresh herbs on things?
Yeah, I mean, well, fresh herbs that we use a lot of is cilantro.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be the one that we use the most in our cooking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and pop the lid off and let it start to cook off some of this water that we added, and it'll start to thicken up a little bit.
Is this your supper for tonight, you guys?
We did a trial run over the weekend, so we've been eating curry all week.
Could you freeze any of that, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we made this, was it Sunday, Tarah?
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, we made this on Sunday, and I ate this a couple times during the week. really as good as leftovers. I took it into work and people were fighting me for it.
Oh, they both look so good. I can't wait to try both of those.
Petey. Petey.
Since I have a hard time with really spicy things, if I just wanted to add just a little bit of spice, what would be the best way to do that? Like maybe a pinch of cayenne? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like instead of doing the chili powder, I would leave out maybe the Serrano chili. You could just do, like a pinch of cayenne, that's fine, or a pinch of just chili powder. And then the main flavors are from the curry powder, the coriander, and the cumin. So, and those aren't going to cause you any problems as far as heat.
Have you ever made your own chapati?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either. I just wondered if you had.
No. I like, the thing I like about Indian food too is even, if you're a little bit more hesitant as far as spice and heat, it tends to be like something that levels off. I know we've probably all tried spicy food where it's like you can't get your mouth to not be on fire anymore. I don't think a lot of Indian foods, at least the Indian foods that I make, are like that. They have a little bit of heat and then they kind of level off. They're not like maybe like Thai food where it just keeps getting hotter and hotter. No matter what you do, you can't get your mouth to cool off.
Do you think chickpeas would be good in there to add some, if you wanted to add some protein?
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good comment. Yeah, we actually do that a lot. We use chickpeas in a lot of our vegan dishes to get that bean protein in there. But that actually, with the same dish, substituting or even adding a can of chickpeas in would be it would be just as good.
Or even, potatoes. If you didn't have sweet potatoes, that would be fine.
If you're looking, so like the nice thing about this is the sweet potatoes give it that natural sweetness. But if you like the flavor of that, one thing that we like to do is use maple syrup to sweeten things a little bit. So if you were to do like the chickpeas, maybe just adding like a teaspoon of maple syrup would give it a nice balanced sweetness to it as well.
Which isn't really traditional in Indian cuisine.
No,
right?
It's not. That's something that we've kind of just always done.
Twist on it.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the combination of sweet potato and tomato is what makes that really special, that dish there.
Yeah, cilantro.
So if I know the hour is almost up, so we'll probably plate this just for a visual, but I would definitely cook this longer to just soften up the potatoes, tomatoes more, and then also to absorb more of the water and cook it off, because right now it does definitely look more soupy than you'd want it.
And you could even probably go like 3 cups if you're pressed for time. I think it wouldn't change it that much. 3 cups of water, sorry.
Yeah.
Tuppence?
So we have a question. Someone's asking if you're using masala, do you need to add cumin or coriander or the other spices if you're using masala?
It's a good question. It depends on what's in your masala blend. So like a lot of masala blends do have those in them, but like the ratio isn't the same. So if you wanted to, you could kind of play with that a little bit. Like here, I'll show you, for instance. This is my masala from Durban. in South Africa. This has cumin, coriander, chili powder, turmeric, and a couple other things in it. So so sometimes I could just use this and I don't have to add some of those other spices depending on what I'm making. But for this dish, I really like using the actual cumin and coriander in there.
You have more control over the ratios with those and how it's going to taste than using like a blend. Don't you think, like a masala?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this is going to cook, but we're just going to plate it so you can see what it would look like at the end. Okay. All right, and so we'll top this typically with cilantro. We just really like it. Gives it just kind of a nice flavor and just helps with color. We like a lot of cilantro. So then this would be what the finished meal would look like. So we have the rice, we have the cubby fry, and then we have the sweet potato and tamarind curry. And again, it won't look as soupy because you'll have more time to cook it. But that is the end result.
That looks beautiful.
Well, thank you. Hopefully it tastes just as good as it looks.
Yeah,
We really like it. We think you'll like it too.
those two look really good together. That combination looks really, really good.
Yeah.
It's really healthy for you, which is our, that's been our main kind of thing with Zest, is trying to make food that's good for you also taste just as good as it looks, and and try to inspire people to cook some of these dishes that are outside their comfort zone that make them feel good and are good for them.
Definitely. And a lot of the items that we have there too are made quickly. So kind of our model is like fast casual. So you can come in and order, or you can call over the phone and order, and your items will be made quickly so that you can eat something healthy on the go. That's kind of the way that we've set the restaurant up. And yeah, so that's an option. And again, we do a rotating Indian dish every week. So this week we have a green mung bean dal that we served with coconut rice. We use the same rice and we add coconut milk to that, just like organic coconut milk. And then we also serve that with potatoes that are sort of similar to this dish. They're braised with some Indian spices, and it kind of just is almost like a garnish to the coconut rice and green mung bean dal. And then, yeah, we switch it up, every week. And we know it's probably past the 7 o'clock time, but we're more than happy to stay and answer any other questions that maybe we missed. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and let us know if you try these dishes out. We're excited